Hey guys, and welcome back to another vanilla boss guide featuring the second boss of AQ40, Sartura. Compared to Skeram, this is a much more straightforward and shorter encounter, focusing on your reflexes and quick thinking skills that would be crucial in surviving this fight. Random Fixation represents the unpredictable nature of this fight due to Sartura and her adds occasionally resetting their aggro and chasing after random players for roughly 5 seconds before returning to their highest aggro target. It's essential that tanks in your raid group rotate their taunt, challenging shout, and mocking blow abilities to control Sartura and her adds so that they can be held in place for players to maximize their DPS output and for stun rotations, which we will discuss later in this guide. Knockback is an exclusive ability that the Royal Guards have where they will occasionally send their target flying into the air, which contributes to the erratic nature of this fight. Whirlwind is Sartura's signature ability that results in high AoE damage. It's important to watch your distance as this ability hits players with cloth armor for 2000 to 3000 damage, while tanks can expect a more moderate value of 1000 to 1500. Sartorial's Royal Guards also possess the same ability, but it deals far less damage, with 700 to 1000 damage in cloth armor wearers, and much lower for other classes. On a final note, remember to use your limited invulnerability potions if you're ever in a tight spot during this fight. Sundering Cleave is associated with Sartorial's Whirlwind ability and results in light to medium damage initially done to the player, while also reducing the armor of any players in its area of effect. When Sartura and her adds are not whirlwinding, they are vulnerable to stun effects, which means that your raid group should organize a stun rotation between your warriors, rogues, and paladins if you're alliance. Abilities to keep in mind are Concussion Blow, Intercept, Hammer of Justice, and the most important, Kidney Shot, but make sure to remember the concept of diminishing returns in vanilla World of Warcraft. Kidney Shot will be your most valuable stun, because it shares no diminishing return with anything other than itself. At 20%, Sartura will become enraged, resulting in a heavy increase to her damage and attack speed. At this point, the raid must focus on burning her down while using any available abilities to keep her controlled and stunned, if possible. After 10 minutes into the encounter, Sartura enters a second enraged state that will result in a raid wipe if she isn't killed by then. For the raid positioning section of this guide, I want to first mention that due to how unpredictable this fight is, there isn't a certain layout or stationary position as to where your raid will be placed. Instead, this section will feature a brief overview of the fight and my thoughts, but remember that the real thing will be much different. Finally, Sartura's room is much more massive than shown here, and it's important that players in your raid group stay away from the tunnel leading to the Scarab Gauntlet to prevent additional problems during the fight. Aside from that, you are more than welcome to skip to the next section at any time. The encounter will begin with the tanks followed by the raid moving into Sartura's room once she is at her farthest point. As the tanks collide with Sartura and her adds, healers and ranged DPS need to immediately start spreading out, while the tanks grab their assigned targets and attempt to separate them before the aggro resets begin happening. Proper control and stunlock rotations should start going into effect as DPS focus on killing the first designated add, which then frees up that tank to help with Sartura or another add. DPS should then switch to the second add and start burning it down, leaving the last Royal Guard to be taken care of. Once the final add dies, the fight should then become straightforward, as Sartura is surrounded and all players can then focus on the last stretch of this boss encounter. As we enter the room with our tanks and a brave paladin taking the lead, the first thing that should be noticed is Sartura's massive aggro range as the fight begins. The tanks immediately engage their targets, using their taunt abilities to hold them in place as stun rotations begin going out. However, while things go well for the target marked as Skull, Sartura and the other two adds have started chasing after random players while whirlwinding at the same time. Repositioning myself to avoid unnecessary damage, first add is already dead as I start casting Shadow Bolt on the second target. Abilities such as Taunt and Concussion Blow are utilized to make sure that it stays in place. Using my Nightfall proc on Sartura, I target the last add, but by the time my spell lands, it's already dead, leaving only Sartura alive. With the adds down, the fight becomes relatively straightforward, as players then focus on avoiding the AoE damage from her Whirlwind ability. By looking at the boss both on screen and glancing down at the debuffs on the target, you can see that with good control and a good stun rotation, the boss is effectively held in place for extended periods of time. By this point, the fight essentially becomes just rinse and repeat. Soon enough, as Sartura reaches 20% of her health and then enters her Enrage state, it's important that the raid focuses on burning down the boss as fast as possible, due to her increased damage that makes Whirlwind incredibly lethal. To sum it up, Sartura is a very short but intense fight that will test the personal responsibility of your raiders to mitigate damage on their own, which plays a larger role in future bosses such as Cthulhu and Aura. As always, thank you guys for watching. If I missed anything or if you have any tips of your own that you'd like to share, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. Join me next time for the third boss of AQ40, Fenris.